Hey you, and welcome to Happy Sex Ed! Today we are finally gonna do the next video in the little series that I promised. The first video was called When Sex Feels Dangerous, Even with a Safe Partner. You may have noticed that I changed the title a little bit because I actually wanted to do a more positive reframe, because it can actually be a nice topic and a very healing topic, so I kind of wanted to get the negative words out of there. You may have also noticed that my background is a bit different now. I have this amazing tree behind me and I just really wanted to include it. And also it's much quieter here, so we may be hearing less truck noises. I hope you like it as much as I do. And yeah, today's video is going to be for someone who sometimes notices themselves getting triggered or uncomfortable during sex with someone they really trust and feel safe with. This is actually very common, and it is in no way meaning that you are broken in any way. And there's a lot of tools that can help you get back to a place where you can really enjoy your sexuality. And yeah, I just really want to offer some of those tools and also some little mental reframes today. And I really hope you find them helpful. So yeah, let's get started. The first thing that I want to offer you today as a little mental reframe is the buffet analogy, to see sex a little bit like a buffet. Because often we tend to see sex like intercourse is the main act, the most important, and everything else is just like these little side dishes. Maybe you do them before, but then you're not really interested in them anymore. But it's actually much more useful to see sex as a buffet with a million different things to choose from, and not so much as a hierarchy. So there's a million little things to try, and intercourse is not necessarily the main thing. Maybe some people find it the most interesting, maybe some people want to keep getting back to that one, but a lot of people will also notice that they actually love all the other parts of it, but they have maybe been giving too much attention to this one main part that everyone seems to care so much about. So that is, first of all, quite interesting to think about. And the next thing that also has to do with the buffet analogy is to ask yourself, first, in a non-sexual context, like in the buffet, what do I like? What do I really like? What do I like most of the time? What do I like sometimes? And what is just a big no for me? Asking yourself that can actually be an amazing tool to practice in your mind what you really like. Because it seems so simple, we all know what we like and dislike, but in the context of sex, no one has told us that. And to practice first with something non-sexual, how to determine if you really like something or not can be very useful. So if you put this in the context of sex, you may think about a certain sexual act as being something you really like. You like this almost always. If you're turned on and you want to have sex, this is going to be something that you would like to include in your sexual experience. At the same time, there may then be things that you need a certain context for. Maybe you need a certain level of arousal to enjoy this thing. Maybe it's day dependent, and some days you're in the mood for it and then some days you're not. And there's maybe also things that you don't like. They're off the table, you never want to have that, you don't want to try it, and it's just a no. And in the same way, a buffet works. There are things that you're always gonna grab, like for example the croissant. Maybe you love the croissant. Then there's things that maybe sometimes you feel like, maybe like bacon and eggs. Sometimes it's a bacon and eggs day, some days not. And then there's things you will never ever eat, like pickles. You just don't like them, and that's okay. And sex is similar, and to explore it a little bit like that can be a really fun way to think about what you really like. What is your pickle? What is your eggs and bacon? And what is your croissant? The main thing that I really learned from the buffet example is, just like with food, where certain things you really need to be in a specific kind of mood for, the same can be true for sex. What you really enjoy one day, it does not mean that you're gonna love it the next day. And this is something really important to be aware of. Because if you think, oh yeah, I've liked this before, I'm gonna like it today, you can find yourself in situations where maybe you don't have the sex that you're actually wanting to have. So yeah, I hope you find it as useful as me. And we're gonna move on to the next little thing, which the next step, of course, would be talking to your sex partner about your discoveries. Because actually communicating what you want and what you like during sex is a very, very important part of getting to a point where your sexual needs are seen and can be met. So that is a really important thing, but it's also kind of difficult. Talking about sex can be vulnerable, and it is really something that all of us have to practice. And for that, there's actually another little practice that I would recommend you try with your sex partner, which is also taking sex out of the frame first and learning to say yes, no, and maybe in a really low stakes situation. What I usually suggest is fantasizing about your dream vacation together. Money is not the issue in this fantasy, and time constraints don't exist. It's just about liking and wanting. And of course, it's important that yeses, nos, and maybes are received in a way that is appreciative and that creates a safe environment. So for example, if you are fantasizing about this vacation and your partner says, oh yeah, you said you would really like to try the snorkeling, but that is really not for me. I'm really afraid of that. I don't want to do that. That's a no for me. Then in that situation, you would thank your partner for being open and honest, and you keep thinking about what you both like. And then you're going to find out that when it comes to planning your dream vacation, you're gonna have a lot of things in common. Like for example, oh wow, great, we both really want to go on a safari. Also, you're gonna figure out that there's things that are a total no for one person, and for the other person it would have been a yes. Then there's also things that maybe are a yes for one person. And then you discover something really valuable that for the other person, even though maybe you thought it would be a no, it's actually a maybe. And depending on the right context, it could be a total yes. And only through conversations like that can you really get to a point in your sex life where you receive what you want and what you need from your partner, because you're learning to be so honest about it. And with exercises like this one, you learn to talk about what you like and what you don't like very openly and honestly. And then, while practicing, it can also get easier to apply those things to sex. Because unfortunately, you cannot really skip the conversations. I know that a lot of people don't love talking about sex. They find it not so romantic. They think it kind of takes away the mood. But it really doesn't have to if you do it in the right way. I'm actually thinking to maybe do a video about sexual communication, because I think it's very important. Maybe let me know if you want to see that in the comments. Yeah, so those are the little mental reframes that I wanted to offer. And now, what is also really important is this. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is getting into your body. Because if you are not embodied, if you don't feel deeply grounded in your body, it is really difficult to say and to determine what feels good in your body. So there are so many embodied exercises that you can do. I'm going to offer you some examples, but I really don't want to be too rigid about this, because actually everyone is so different and everyone is going to find very different things enjoyable. So I want to encourage you to keep searching for what you really enjoy, to get into your body, to ground yourself, and to find things that work for you. I'm still going to offer you a couple of possibilities. For example, one of the things that I really like to do is eating without any distractions. Eating is something we, for the most part, all really enjoy. And if we do it without distraction, we really connect to our body and to our pleasure in that moment much more deeply than if we are looking at a screen. Another amazing exercise that you can do is, for example, yoga. Yoga also offers amazing tools to really ground into your body and to feel yourself and to feel where you have pain, where it feels really good, which movements feels nice. So that can also be a great exercise. Other things that you can do is meditation or also breath work. A lot of people love this. Personally, I find meditation really difficult. Even though I think it's beneficial, it is hard for me. So it's maybe not the best tool to start with if you also feel the same. But I still wanted to include it because it can be incredibly helpful. Other things may include journaling or creative expression or touching yourself without the goal of orgasm, but really to explore on your own body what feels really, really nice. It could also look like taking a really long bath or going barefoot through the grass. There are so many options, and I hope you find what works for you because it can be a very beautiful experience. Maybe I should say you will find what works for you if you just search, because there's actually so many nice tools out there. The next thing I want to talk about is also connecting to your partner. When it comes to tools that connect you to your partner, it can be very helpful if sex sometimes can feel triggering or a little bit off. It can be super helpful to first rebuild and deeply get in contact with your sexual partner without any sexual context. So this could, for example, look like eating a meal together without distraction, or just talking for extended periods of times without the phones in the room. It can also look like extended eye contact, like massages, like non-sexual cuddling, like tickling. A lot of people love those little tickles over the skin, and it can also look like that. But also here, it's really not so important what you do. It's important that it works for you and your partner. And the whole goal of it is not to do it right. All of this is really just to signal to your body, I am feeling close. There is closeness, there is intimacy, and it feels safe. It feels good actually. Alright, one more thing that I really want to mention is when you are having sex, it should always be clear that sex can be stopped at any time. You should never ever find yourself in a situation where you are continuing with something that you don't like. It can really cause much more problems long term than it solves at the moment. If your idea is I'm going to avoid an awkward moment, but you are doing something that actually feels bad to you, this can really have consequences long term. So it is really important to establish a foundation with the partner, with the sexual partner, where you can say no at any time. It is always safe to say no. It is always safe to stop. There's not going to be any blaming. There's not going to be bad moods. It's just okay. It's completely fine to say no. It's also important to remember that if you consent to one sexual act, it does not mean that you consent to anything else. If you consent to oral sex, it does not mean you consent to intercourse. And if you consent to intercourse, it does not mean that you consent to oral sex. It is really important to have that in mind and to make sure that your partner also has that in mind. Only this way you can really guarantee a safe environment for sexual exploration. Another little thing that I want to mention is aftercare. A friend of mine, shout out to Marcel, he recently told me that he really wants to see a video about that, so I'm going to do that. But for now, I also want to mention it because I think it's quite relevant in this context, especially if someone sometimes feels off or triggered. Aftercare basically means that after the sexual encounter has ended, it's not just both partners going their ways, but there is going to be a little bit of quality time spent after sex to unwind and to integrate the experience. This can look like talking about it, thinking a little bit of what you really liked, what was nice, but maybe you wouldn't necessarily want to do it again, and also just appreciating your partner, appreciating the experience, making them feel loved. It can look like cuddling, it can look like kissing, it can look like going for a walk together if both partners enjoy that. Also here, it can really look however it feels good to both partners, but it is important that there is some kind of integration time after sex. I was actually thinking to give you also some book recommendations because there are so many great resources about this topic. However, I have most of my books about the topics borrowed to other people right now because I always want everyone to read them. So I was actually thinking maybe to make this a different video entirely and then share some of my book resources because I think they can be also very helpful. Alright, I think we made it to the end of this video. I am so happy you're here and I'm so happy you watched this video. I really hope you like it, and remember to be really gentle with yourself and really loving, because this really is a journey, you know? There's not going to be a huge change from one day to the other, but change is always possible, and a beautiful and fulfilling sex life is not only possible, but really, you know, important for everyone. So I'm super appreciative that you want to get to this point, that you have sex that you really enjoy, because it is a big sign of self-love, you know? So I really congratulate you on this one, and I'm so happy you're here. I will be here and on every step of your journey. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm definitely going to answer them. And yeah, let me know what you want to see next time. And I hope you have a beautiful day. Thank you so much. Bye!